Okay, for our next example, we're going to continue along with the pythonanvil.com tutorial. And we'll do that for the first part of this video course, only because it provides a good basic introduction about how to use Anvil, along with detailed explanations of the Python code for any users who aren't familiar with Python. That'll allow us to continue quickly with this video for anybody who knows Python already. But if you have any questions at all about how the Python code works, all of the details are contained in this tutorial. As we progress in the video series, we'll go well beyond what's contained in this free tutorial into much more complex examples and a lot more features in Anvil. But this is a great way for us to get started so that you have all the explanation you need here at the tutorial. This next example is a little math testing application. It allows the user to answer basic arithmetic questions for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, where the numbers are generated randomly by Python code in Anvil. So the user interface for this is going to contain 4 label widgets, a text box, a drop-down widget, and a button. So let's follow this little diagram here and basically lay out what we need. Go back to Anvil IDE, select Material Design as our template, and in the design editor, go to the toolbox, let's drag some labels. We will put a label widget in the title. We're going to drag a label widget for the first number, the first operand. Then we're going to drag a drop-down widget to contain the operator. We're going to have another widget down here for the answer and an additional widget over here. And notice how I'm aligning these widgets so that this label number 2 is on the left side of this row. I'm going to resize, actually I'm going to resize it the other way, so that this drop down is a bit smaller. And also, I want this label, the first number in our math test, to be aligned to the left. So I'm going to go to the text property and align that left. I want this operator to be aligned right. So I'm going to select, oops, drag that back over. If you make any mistakes dragging things around, it's very easy just to realign. And let's try this one more time. I'm going to push this over just a tiny bit. Push this over a tiny bit. And for this label property, I'm going to choose to align that to the right. And we want to have a text entry widget. So we'll use this text box and align that on the second row, and then a button. And let's make this a little bit smaller, make the text entry area bigger. So you just get the mouse positioned here, and we can align that to the right. Let's change this button's role to primary color. We'll change the text on that to submit. And let's start giving these labels some text. We're going to call this math test. And we want this label to indicate to the user an answer should be typed in. Let's get that a colon. There we go. And let's make this just a little bit smaller. Okay, that looks like a good layout to start with. Okay, go back. Looks like we've got everything we need. Now, instead of writing every single bit of code, what I'm going to do is copy and paste the code we have here into our code editor. And we'll just explain how each bit of code works. So I'm going to go back into the code editor. this is the default code that Anvil generates for each new form. You can see up here we have some imports that are created automatically. We have a class that contains all the code for the current form, and then we've got a definition for what's run initially when the form opens, and we have a place for more code of our own. So I'm going to highlight all that and paste in the code that we've gotten from the tutorial. Go back to the design view, and let's look at this drop-down widget. We're going to want to put some operators in here for our math test. So I'm going to do a plus, a minus, multiplication symbol, which is an asterisk, and a divide symbol. If we run this now, we should see that we've got a drop-down that works with some operators, and you can see the code that we've put into the code editor gives us some random numbers. Let's try answering this question. 2 minus 4 equals minus 2. Let's submit that. Okay, so we've got a little issue with this running. Let's click stop and see what our code says. So we'll do a little debugging here. Let's get a look at these labels. We have label 2 here, label 4 here, a text box 1 here, and a submit button. If we double click on the submit button, it will bring us to the code which runs when we click on that button, which has already been copied from the tutorial. Let's take a look at that. In the beginning here, we've got an import, which imports the random library from the standard Python library. When the program begins, it runs this init function. This is a default line generated by Anvil. Okay, now what we're doing is we're setting the text on the label 2 widget to be a random number between 0 and 9, and we're converting that back to a string so that it will be accepted by this text widget. And then for the label 2 widget, we're setting the text property again to another random number between 0 and 9. And then we're setting the drop-down one selected value to be a random choice from the operators that we have in that drop-down. And then when the button 1 widget is clicked, we're going to create a new variable, and we're setting that variable equal to the text on label 2 plus a space plus the operator that's selected in the drop-down 1 widget, and then concatenating that with the text in the label 4 widget. So that's going to be a number, an operator, and another number separated by spaces. We're taking that evaluated string and setting it to the variable answer.text. Now we're creating a new variable named answer. We're setting that to the evaluated value contained in the answer.text. So the Python eval function takes that text string and actually performs the operation that's contained in that string. We'll talk more about eval later. Generally, don't want to use eval. We want to use some more specific safe functions in the AST library. But for now, this is a simple little program running just in the client. It doesn't have any access to our server, so eval is appropriate here. It's going to evaluate this text string that we've created, which is a number and an operator and another number. And that evaluated value is going to be converted to a string, and that entire evaluation is going to be assigned the variable answer. And then we're going to perform an if evaluation, and we're going to say if the text box 1's text property is equal to that answer variable, then we'll alert the word correct. Otherwise, we'll alert the word incorrect. So let's run this, and you'll see as we open up the app, it's created our numbers. It's generated it's chosen a random operator. We have the opportunity to type in an answer here. and then click the submit button. And if the answer is correct, it tells us correct. If the answer is incorrect, it tells us incorrect. So great, we've got a little working test, but unfortunately, to make this give us another answer, we'd have to restart the program. And now you can see 4 times 9, 6. Let's see if it gives us the correct answer. Okay, so it looks like it's working. If we type in an incorrect answer, we get the response incorrect. So now there's some things here that aren't accounted for. One of those potential problems is if we have a division operator selected randomly, and if we were to get the number 0 here, we'd run into a math error. So let's handle that. Go back over to our tutorial and we can grab some of this code that explains how to do that. So this explains everything that we've seen so far. All of this code is here. And there's a little explanation here that what we want to do is actually reset the random variables, put this in a new method or a new function. And what we're going to do is copy that function over here. This is basically what was contained in the init definition. We're going to take that away, create a new function or a new method, and put that random number generation and random operator choice into a separate method. And then we'll run that method when we want to reset the math test. And so we'll call this as self. You can see it gives us all of the potential options. So you can see we've got self reset operands. So that will do the same thing. Now, every time we want to reset the operands and provide the user a new test, all we have to do is run the reset operands method. A couple other things you can do here is when the user types something in, we can set this text box text, the text property of the text widget, to be an empty string, and also reset the focus onto that text box widget so that the user doesn't need to delete their previous answer. So you can see here I've got all this new code, the reset operands function together with this little clearing text code. And we'll just pop all this in to the code editor. I'm going to copy that over here, Control A, paste this in. Let's run this again. Now what happens is when we click the submit button, let's go ahead and give an answer. Submit, it says incorrect. Because I didn't do multiply. But you can see when I've clicked submit, it ran that reset operands method and gave us a new question. So 21, submit, that's correct. And now it runs again. 0 minus 3 should be minus 3. Submit. Okay, so we have a reset operands function going. And you can see here, when we click the button 1, it goes through this whole evaluation before, and the only thing that's been added is we add another evaluation of that reset operands function. Now let's handle this error. So if we were to randomly get a division operator in the randomly selected drop-down value, and if we were also to get a 0 in the second operand widget, we'd get a division by 0 error. So right away, we want to use an if evaluation. If that happens, we're just going to run the reset operands method again, and that will just eliminate that potential problem. Now, there's some other potential problems here. You might notice that if you were to type in something other than the internal representation of a number, so for example, 9 plus 0, we have that set to the string 9, and so that string 9 has to match exactly. That's going to give us correct. But say we take one of these, this should be 4 times 7, 28, and let's make that 28.00, submit it, and we get an incorrect value, even though that answer was right, because that string 28.00 didn't match exactly the internal Python representation for the number 28. So what we can do is sort of massage these values so they're both the same. And again, we can use the eval function in Python and apply that same eval to the text that's the text property of the text box 1 widget. And so that will massage both those values to be the same internal representation in Python. And so we won't have that same problem if the user doesn't type in the exact representation. So if the example for example, if the answer is 0.25 and the user types in 0.25, the way it currently exists in the code, we would get an incorrect answer. And this little bit of code will fix that, because now we're running the eval on both the random, or the answer to the random question, and eval on the text in text box 1. Okay, now that provides, or that creates another potential problem, so that since we're evaluating the text that's entered by the user, all the user really needs to do is type the question in. So if we were to get, for example, 4 times 7, and the user just types in 4 times 7 into the answer box, Python's going to evaluate that, and it's going to come out to be the same as the evaluated answer. So we need to handle that by using another if evaluation and making sure that the user hasn't typed in the actual evaluated answer text. If they've done that and tried to cheat the system, we'll give them a little message saying incorrect, you can't type the problem as the solution. Otherwise, if the answer is the same as if the evaluated answer is the same as the user's entry, then we'll alert correct, or if it isn't the same, we'll alert incorrect. So that'll get rid of some of these potential hidden problems in making this program perform the way we want. So we'll copy this full code into the Anvil editor. Run it, and let's see if we've got a working app. It gives us some random numbers. State. Good. Let's answer an answer incorrectly. Good. Let's try typing in the actual question. See if our little test is working. If we type in the answer, it'll tell us we can't type the problem as a solution. Let's see here. 9 times 6. 4. Okay. Looks like we've got a running application. Okay, so at this point, you've seen a little bit more about how to lay out the design on the screen. You've seen a little bit more about how to use the Python code editor to refer to items in the user interface. And you've seen a little bit about debugging and running through the run and test process in Anvil. You've also seen a little bit more about how to copy and paste some of the code from the tutorial so we don't have to do all of that manually. And you've seen again how you can find some of these answers to these questions and everything that we're going to do in the very first part of these video tutorials in the Python Anvil.com tutorial. So follow along. In our next example, we'll continue to explore some more features of Anvil.